Another way we can categorize race is by geographic location. This is called very simply geographic categorization. Hopefully this is pretty simple to you, but basically it's just organizing races based on geographic location. Usually that's Africa, Asian, American, European. Okay, so really this is just lumping people together based on political boundaries or continental boundaries. Okay, this is obviously a weakness, right? If we're trying to organize people based on race and we define race based on political boundaries, how could that be problematic? Try to think about that. That might be problematic because political boundaries aren't always where people stay. People cross political boundaries all the time. So we're moving between countries and across these borders. So if I live in Europe and I move to Egypt, now am I African? Has my race now changed? Will my children now be African instead of European? Okay, these are questions to ask. So it really lumps together too many people and makes very broad categories that don't function very well. Okay, in theory it makes sense, right? We'll lump people based on where they live, but people move all the time, and in our globalized world we're moving even more frequently and further distances. This also overlooks a lot of internal, or what we call in-group variation. So this overlooks the vast amount of variation between groups of people within one continent. So if you look at Africa, for example, Africa is huge. Africa is a gigantic continent. People often lump it together in their minds into one kind of ideal or one kind of person or race and that sort of thing. But if you look and you stood someone from Northern Africa beside someone from Sub-Saharan Africa, they're going to look very different. There's a lot of physical or phenotypic difference between people in that continent. So to lump together a huge, vast area, you're not only lumping together large groups of people with a lot of physical variation, but you're also lumping together a ton of cultural variation. Okay, the culture of Egypt is far different than the culture of Tanzania, okay, which is far different than any other culture or group of people you'll find in the African continent. So in general, this geographic categorization is just too broad, and trying to divide people by political boundaries doesn't work because we don't always follow these political boundaries. The next approach is an adaptational approach. So this is the idea that people will adapt to their environment and pass on those adaptations. Okay, it might use those same phenotypic categories of skin color, nose shape, body size and shape, but the approach is slightly different. So oftentimes when you hear about people being categorized by these physical traits, like we said in the beginning of this video series, this often will indicate a belief in a deeper or fundamental difference, and can often lead to ranking of people based on these differences. And we saw that last week when we talked about the social evolutionism theoretical approach. It really used phenotypic categories to rank people in addition to those cultural categories. And so this can be kind of dangerous. The adaptational approach, on the other hand, sees these differences in adaptations as indicative of fitness or ability to adapt or resilience instead of inferiority or a way to rank people. Okay, so there's a bit of a difference there, and it is a less negative approach. So the adaptational approach just looks at phenotypic characteristics that are adaptations to the environment around them and how those adaptations are passed on. And that's how you create a racial category.